Okay, I know we may have a couple others joining momentarily, but it's 10:15, so we'd like to get started. First of all, my name is Thomas LaFerrier. I'm with Making Sense International, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Virtual Gigs Disrupted from Informality to Sustainable Careers breakout session. I'm going to be helping with facilitation, so I'd like to go over some quick ground rules, and then I'll hand it over to the presenters. So first, please, it's just a reminder to stay muted. And again, if you've called in by phone, also make sure to stay muted. Please disable your video if you are not presenting. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature if you do have a question or comment, and we'll try and address it as quickly as possible. But also we encourage you to use the chat box as much as possible. We'll be monitoring and trying to pull questions, but it will also be valuable information or comments that the presenters can use in the future. We understand that with everything being remote, we may run into some technical difficulties, so we appreciate your patience in advance. But with that, I will hand it over to our presenter, Nina Oduro from IREX, Technical Advisor.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks everyone for joining us. This topic is very important for youth around the world, and we start this discussion with acknowledging that virtual gigs have been around, but today, due to disruption, looking at COVID-19, places where there's conflict and restrictions on movement, the virtual gig economy has been rising. And so we're taking a look at the opportunities within the virtual gig economy for youth to benefit, but not totally dismantling the fact that this particular economy is filled with issues of informality. As we look at how virtual gigs can be leveraged to support youth, we want to look at how they can actually be a pathway for youth to not only gain sustained careers over time, but also entrepreneurship. We have a panel of guests today that will share with you what they've been doing in their communities with a particular lens on Kenya, as well as Palestine. So I'm going to actually turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. And we will basically tell us who we are, our name, our title, and what our interests are in the virtual gig economy. So of course, my name is Nina Oduro, and I'm a technical advisor at IREX. My particular interest in virtual gigs is that it's an industry and an area that it's connecting people around the world in terms of access to income. So I'm very interested in seeing how people around the world are leveraging different types of opportunities, especially youth, to earn. I'm going to turn it over to Saro to introduce himself.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I am Saro Nakashian, the CEO of EFE Palestine, affiliated with EFE Global in the United States. My particular interest comes from our region, where a lot of our youth are living in Gaza, and they have a lot of difficulty in movement, getting out of there. So the only way by which they can communicate is virtually. And that's why it's very important for us to have the virtual world open to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Haneen.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is Haneen Aliyan Al-Hawli. I'm a training alumnus from EFE Palestine. I have been interested in working in virtual gigs as I'm seeking a job opportunity and investing on my English translation and linguistic skills. And I'm going to introduce my success story.
Thank you, Haneen. And Frida. Frida, are you there? Frida, can you hear us?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Frida Mwangi. I'm from Kenya. I'm an expert transcriber, and I'm also the founder of KaziRemote, a leading transcription company in Kenya. My interest in the virtual gigs actually, I would say, has evolved. When I began, it was just about earning an income and looking for employment. But with time, it has moved to a point where I want to leverage technology and the opportunities online to create jobs in Kenya and in my own small way, change their narrative of unemployment. Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So we know that you all are joining are also invested and interested in this work. So we'd like for you to also introduce yourself using the chat. If everyone could do this for me by introducing yourself, just put your name, the organization that you represent or work with, And then if you could answer this question for us, just to see how everyone is engaging with the virtual gig economy. The number of people, just take a moment to think about the number of people in your own network who have been able or are currently leveraging freelance or consulting opportunities in the virtual gig economy. And that's by using platforms like Upwork. So if you know anyone, if you can think of how many people you know, just throw it in the chat and we can see kind of who, you know, what it's looking like even here amongst us about how we're interacting with the gig economy. So I'll leave it there and just follow the prompts here on your screen. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining. Hi, Sarah. And Sarah's saying about 10% of her network. Hi, Nancy. Don't know anyone directly who is doing virtual gig work, definitely. Camilla. Caitlin says 5% as well. So, oh, and Claire is saying hundreds, friends and also creatives who work with and for. We work with and for. And certainly I myself at IREX, we work with virtual gig workers on graphic design work, a lot of things that we outsource through virtual gigs and have been doing over time. And so this is very indicative of how people are very much engaging with this within their own networks over time. So keep those coming and let me then go to just what we will be discussing here in our session. So I just want to note that our session is going to be interactive. So we will be engaging on the chat and fielding questions from you. And then towards the end, we will be, and as we go, you can throw in questions in the chat, but my colleague Sega Belichu, who's also in the chat as well, will be fielding the questions so that panelists and I can take it towards the end. So feel free to comment and ask questions as we go, and she will elevate it to us towards the end to then respond to. But throughout, we are going to engage you, so be ready to type in your chat. You're also a part of the conversation. Today, we'll be talking about setting the stage. So looking at what the definitions within the virtual gig space are and what the current trends in the virtual gig economy particularly are, with the focus on Kenya as well as Palestine. And for our panelists are going to be sharing some of their lived experiences. We will also be sharing some of our research that complements these and reinforces their lived experiences, reinforces some of the research that we've been seeing, as well as the work that both EFE and IREX are doing in the virtual gig space. So let's keep it going. So just as an overview, I wanted to, oops, I forgot something. I hope you guys didn't see that. So we have a poll for you. And so we're gonna launch the poll. This is the poll question. And I'm going to read it out to everyone as the poll gets thrown to you. But you have to answer, just take a moment and answer. We're not gonna penalize you if you don't get this correct. But freelance job postings rose by what % in the second quarter of 2020? Which is looking at, when post-COVID moment, compared to the same period in 2019. So this is recent research and thinking about 2019 versus 2020, how much did the freelance job postings rise? So let's see what you guys think. We'll give you another moment. I'm going to give you guys 5 more seconds. Great. So we're going to end this poll and you guys can see your results now. So many of you are actually, there's a bit of a tie. There's a tie between 41% and 83%. That's a vast difference of opinion. So many people are feeling like, look, there's been a tremendous rise due to COVID, the effects of COVID. And many people, others are saying there's been, rise, but not that, not as vast. It looks like 41% is taking the lead now after some people. I hope no one was Googling. But here we go. So we're going to end the poll and show you what the research is actually showing us. So here we go. I'm going to, oh, did I share the results to you guys? Okay, sharing the results to you guys. So I'm going to now show you what the actual findings are. So freelance job postings rose by 41% in the second quarter of 2020, post-COVID-19, compared to the same period in 2019. So while we may think that it's about 80 something percent, this is still a vast rise. I mean, looking at how people are engaging online with restrictions in their communities, online work is becoming more and more something that people not only want to do, but have to do. The necessity of it is rising, and we're seeing that. And that's from a CNBC report as of this month. And so looking at the lay of the land in both Kenya and Palestine, we know that the Kenyan gig economy is expected to grow by about 33% in 2023, which equates to about $345 million. And Kenya is one of the largest suppliers of virtual gig workers in Africa, second only to South Africa. We also know that in Palestine, virtual giggers are on the rise as well, especially with the government supporting the virtual gig work and opportunities, I mean, and then the estimated amount of gig workers is approximately 6,000. With restrictions on movement in the area, this seems to be on par with how the actual area of work and gig work may be rising, with people having to stay in one place and not be able to go out for work. So I'm going to turn it over now to Haneen to share with us the definitions that we're looking at when we talk about virtual gig work. Haneen, are you on mute?
Yeah, I can hear you. Actually, there are two types of virtual gigs. The first one is micro work. It is defined as when projects and tasks are broken down into micro tasks that can be completed in seconds or minutes. Micro workers require basic numeracy and literacy skills such as image tagging, text transcription, and data entry. For the second type, it is online freelancing. It refers to contracting professional services by third-party workers. It often requires higher level of expertise than micro work, and it attracts workers with more technical skills. Typically, projects are large and performed over long periods of time. You can say hours, days, or even months, such as graphic design, web development, or technical report writing.
Thank you, Haneen. So, and I'm going to now turn it over to Frida and Saro for the barriers.
Okay, for the barriers to professional careers, I would speak about Kenya, and I'm going to speak about two, which are regional barriers and the skills match and skills disconnect. So for the regional barrier, the virtual gig, as we know, is mostly in developed countries. So without internet access, without the PCs, and without even the skills, it's very hard for Kenyan and African citizens as a whole to secure these kind of jobs. So there's also something we call regional discrimination on some of the platforms, where we find developed countries will post jobs, but they will be very specific to say that they are only hiring natives. So it doesn't matter what skill you have, it doesn't matter how good you are, for as long as you're not a native in the developed countries, that really restricts you. So that's the bit about regional barriers. Then we go to the part of where our education system right now in Kenya, where the universities, the colleges, the TVETs are all churning out graduates every year. But these graduates, although with degrees or diplomas, tend not to be quite fit for the workspace. So they don't have those skills. There's also no education criteria or curriculum kind of telling these young people that if you do not get 9-to-5 job, there's opportunities online. And so once they are out, they are very lost. They don't know what to do because there's no work in Kenya and they have no idea how to get started online. So those are the two kinds of barriers, regional and the skills mismatch and disconnect.
Thanks, Rita. Saro?
Yeah, in general, in Palestine, you know, we have the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that has resulted in a lot of downturn for the Palestinian economy. In addition to that, there is low levels of private investment and almost none foreign direct investment. So all of these things are creating issues, barriers for professional careers for young Palestinians. So in this, you can add to this some of the issues of electricity shortages, you know, particularly in Gaza, internet shortages and that would give you the limited time to be working internationally as a virtual worker. University is very important for Palestinians and there is a very high graduation rate of Palestinian youth from universities. But that also creates a problem of finding jobs. So the only opportunity here is to work virtually, to find ways by which you can move into a professional career into the future.
Thank you. I'm going to take us to the next slide. And Saro, if you could share the trends that you're seeing so far in the virtual gig space.
Okay, very, very important. The fourth industrial revolution, you know, everybody's talking about the digital world and this is the fourth industrial revolution. It is not only affecting how we do work, but it is also affecting governance. It is also affecting systems. And with what we found out today with the COVID-19 issue, we find out that it is affecting work processes as a whole. And the world is moving, whether we like it or not, into a digital world. And the advancements that we made in the fourth industrial revolution helped us to be able to cope with COVID-19 to a certain extent all over the world. Of course, gig opportunities give us in economies that are very volatile, but the Palestinian community being under restriction for a whole time, and we say there is the importance of, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. And in this case, the invention here is, although it comes from outside, it is doing the virtual work instead of doing the physical movement as we talk about it. During the COVID-19, this has been very much used, and today most of about 95% of the training that we do in Palestine has been transferred into virtual work, and it is moving and working out. There is an increased donor attention to the and NGO attention to the community. As I could give you some examples with the Mercy Corps work with Gaza Sky Geeks, you know, they have been very, very successful in pulling this out. MasterCard, UK, the Rockefeller Foundation, Islamic Relief, which is supporting EFE in Gaza. And specifically, I would say when we worked our program for our virtual works, I can see in our audience, you know, Jennifer Kushel. She was the consultant that actually helped us to develop this. So I would like to give her a tribute on that on one of our programs. Also the increased government programs in Palestine and also in Kenya, if you would like to add to that, please.
And Frida, did you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, so for current trends and shaping the virtual gigs here in Kenya, we have at least 4 I could name. Of course, the COVID-19 was a big one. I would say COVID-19 has actually kind of legitimized or demystified the myth, because now with the restrictions and the push to work from home, so many people now understand what others were doing when they said they were working from home. Previously here in Kenya, if you tell someone you're working from home, they would think you're doing really shady things online. But this has helped a lot, because when they have lost jobs and the only solution now is to try and find out if there's something they can continue doing online in order to earn an income. The other thing I would mention is also the ministry, the government through the Ministry of ICT. They have been pushing a lot as in, and to create an enabling environment and an enabling ecosystem. So through internet connectivity, recently there was the Google Loons. These are balloons that are launched in the rural areas to help even the very interior areas of Kenya access internet connectivity. There's also a government initiative called Ajira, where their target is to reach a million youth and to give them decent ways of earning through digital work. And then we have the data protection, which actually was passed by the president early this year, which also makes it it gives people trust to get online. And then the last thing is we have advocacy, because last year, Kenya formed the first association of online workers, who now are positioning themselves as the voice of online workers and trying to push these policies around financial inclusion, social protection, and such. So yeah, that's the trends shaping Kenya right now.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask Haneen to share a little bit about some of the trends we're seeing as far as the landscape of virtual giggers themselves.
Yes, so following what has been said for the current trends of virtual giggers, actually, virtual giggers are similar across geographies, predominantly male and below the age of 35, varied educational levels depending on type of virtual gigs they engage in. For example, we have both micro work, as I said before, and or online freelancing, spending an average of fewer than 20 hours per week. It is larger proportion of micro workers' work time in this way.
And then I would add that a lot of them are motivated. The key motivating factor to get into virtual gig work has been income generation. So looking at, you know, how can I use my time in my home with my devices to earn an income. Most virtual giggers are in the position of using the opportunity as more supplementary income. We find that only about 50% can actually do it as full-time work, and those are usually freelancers. And just thinking about the difference between freelancers or micro workers, freelancers are often able to get long-term contract work on virtually, whereas micro workers get short-term work, which does not always lend itself to having full-time, usually lends itself to being more supplementary. So let's get into a little bit of the work that our organizations have been doing in the virtual gig space. So looking first at IREX, IREX partnered with KaziRemote, Frida here, to really look at the question of what skills youth need, in particularly Mombasa, Kenya as our focus, to succeed in professional virtual gig work that actually leads to sustained careers or entrepreneurship. So we've embarked on doing a literature review, but also using a practitioner research model where we actually test an intervention, pilot intervention with the youth to assess our hypothesis about the skills necessary for them to not only access virtual gig opportunities, but then leverage it to other opportunities over time that are more long-term job opportunities and entrepreneurship opportunities. We're particularly working with both youth with no experience at all in virtual gig work, as well as some experience. And by some experience, we mean they've at least acquired one opportunity that they've worked in the virtual gig space, but are certainly not experts in the field. We are also working particularly with the technical skill of transcription, which enables more access to youth without prior certifications, without prior education background needed to access. The virtual training, we're offering particularly a virtual training and encompassing the transcription is the soft skills component that we're looking at to see which soft skills are really also critical and necessary for them to succeed. What we've seen so far with youth participants that are engaged are that the opportunity to work and earn is very essential to them, their motivations. They also want to leverage the opportunity to learn about skills for the future, careers and entrepreneurship. So they have larger goals that they're interested in using virtual gig work to transition to. And they're also looking to expand their job search options. So looking at the idea that COVID has really affected their opportunities to access jobs that they would normally want in the formal spaces, they're looking for more skills to then market themselves in the virtual gig space. So I'm going to hand it over to Saro to talk about the EFE interventions.
Okay, the EFE intervention actually started in the beginnings of 2016, almost 4 years ago, where we found out that there is a great need for youth to find different opportunities in work. And that's when we developed the program for all of Palestine, but it became more and more workable in Gaza because of the restrictions, as I said. We are targeting youth from the ages of 20 to 35, mostly university and college graduates and sometimes technical school graduates. Our program is mainly comprised of a 50 hours work readiness training that gives, soft skills, as we call it, on how to write your resume, on how to communicate, on how to be a leader and all of these things. And then we do the main technical training, which we call the virtual training, 35 hours. In basically the topics include, understanding the global workforce, finding job opportunities online, establishing connections internationally, self-marketing skills, digital profiles, which is very important as to how can you present yourself into to the outside. And then the most clearly important thing is how to get paid, because you can do all the work and then you might not be able to get paid, especially with the difficulties that we have. The experiences that we have been linking them with outsourcing opportunities, both locally in Palestine and with international organizations. And this has been, and we're looking forward to find more and more companies that would be accepting more of our virtual gigs into their programs, and this requires, of course, collaboration between us and the private sector, the IT companies in Palestine and internationally.
Thank you, Saro. So Haneen is actually a beneficiary and alumni of the Education for Employment program that Saro just spoke of. So Haneen, I'd love for you to share your experience and what you gained from that participating.
Yeah, actually, I consider joining EFE as a turning point in 2019. In other words, weeks before joining the training, I used to feel bored, helpless and upset. It is like being an excellent English graduate who has not found a suitable opportunity that fits her level of experience, an opportunity that fires her passion and that fulfills her ambition. I led depressing days. However, everything started to change gradually when they called me to join the program.
Haneen, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can hear. The camera, I'm coming just to open. Okay. Yeah, so everything started to change when I joined the program. I felt excited and content as I found a place where I would be rediscovered. And the EFE training program, I could get out of my comfort zone and build strong relations with the staff from the management, the trainers themselves, and peers from various majors and different areas. I learned that a mere technical skill is not enough to enter the virtual world, but it needs to be strengthened by soft skills and be promoted correctly. This is what the training program considered, in which I and my peers were trained for 50 hours on soft skills as communication and persuasion skills, working with team members and under pressure, dealing with different types of managers and clients, in addition to planning, cooperation, and leadership. Then, implementing what has been taught, every trainee introduced him or herself in a 1 minute talk in front of all the trainees and get evaluated on that. The second part of the training is the technical part, where we were introduced to several virtual jobs platforms, methods of individual promoting and branding, finding clients, communicating with them the best, and building a long-term relations with them. I was happily chosen, along with most of my peers, to move to the second phase of the training, and I conducted 2 interviews with 2 companies and was selected into Cordoba company in Nablus. It was the first time for me to work with an institution in the West Bank, despite the fact that we live in the same country. So this is a bit ironic. I worked there in the field of research, translation, and content writing. It was a rich experience that sharpened my skills and opened other opportunities for me later on which I worked with several local and international institutions and individuals. I'm grateful to EFE management, trainers, and peers. I'm grateful to all the pleasing moments we spent together, and I'm grateful to all the dark moments I learned from. Thus, EFE plants the seeds of the challenge and hope in my heart, and I'm managing to keep this on.
Thank you, Haneen. I think your story is really puts into perspective what can be achieved through these interventions that support young people to leverage skills, learn skills, but also leverage some of the learning that they've gotten through formal education systems into the virtual gig economy. And as we know, you're still in that economy and working and succeeding. In the next phase of our session, we'd like to actually open it up and have more of a discussion with ourselves, but also with everyone that's joining us. So as we've been going, I really like that some of you were asking questions. We are actually fielding those so that we can take as many as possible, but also connect some of them and answer them back to you at the end. So keep those coming. My colleague Sega will be going through those as they come. And then for right now, we have a few discussion prompts, basically 2 of them, that we're going to post to you all in the chat to share your thoughts on it. And then we, as a group of panelists, will also share our work and experiences on it. So here's the first prompt that's coming out to everyone. What are the opportunities and challenges for practitioners in supporting you to leverage virtual gigs? So if you have a thought on this, please share in the chat. What do you think? What are the opportunities and challenges for practitioners in supporting youth to leverage virtual gigs? I'm going to give you all a moment there, about 1.5 minutes to write in the chat. And then we will also share our work and experiences based on this prompt. So if you have any ideas, just as far as your own thinking, please type it into the chat. So again, what are the opportunities and challenges for practitioners in supporting youth to leverage virtual gigs? And as you do that, I'm going to actually have Haneen share her personal experience between some of the opportunities and challenges that she faced with getting adequate training and information. So Haneen, what are your, what experiences did you have with that? Haneen, you're on mute.
Yeah. So speaking about the challenges that I have faced during the train, or in the second phase of the training, which is the employment phase, in my experience in working with the institution I work with, which is Cordoba company in Nablus, like I faced challenges, but I managed to overcome them successfully. First of all, I used to sit on my laptop and was working 5 days a week from 9 to 5, but I managed to have breaks between like them from time to time and move a bit. Also, it was not easy for me to work from home as the environment differs. You know, like offices are rather formal and specialized places to work on. Our communication with the management and colleagues is easier. However, I and the company team agreed to communicate through certain apps such as Trello and Slack, and this makes the communication easier for us. At the beginning of this job, I faced problems with internet connection and electricity. You know, as we in Gaza don't enjoy electricity 24 hours a day. But I bought a battery, so I used to fully charge my laptop when there is electricity and use internet all the time. In October the 2nd, which is the second month of working virtually, I got a chance of working as an English language teacher in a governmental school. All the graduates, you know, like me, were dreaming for such a chance. It was the first for me to be given this opportunity. So I got confused which to choose, online working or to be a teacher for the 3 months. I chose to do both, and I used to work 12 hours a day. It was tiring and it affects the quality of my online job. Like at the beginning, but by the time everything went okay, especially that I used to talk with the EFE management here, Rauya, and they advised me how to manage my time well, and everything started like to be fine by the time.
Thank you, Haneen. I think your personal, the challenges that you had really speaks to what practitioners, some of the issues that practitioners also are thinking about when supporting young people. And I see some of you putting in the chat, I've seen, you know, opportunities in the terms of supporting young people to explore the virtual gig economy and gain confidence and build skills, but also the idea that access to internet as a challenge is not always in the control of the practitioner. And so enabling young people to actually have access to internet, especially those that are marginalized and marginalized communities and may not even have access to devices. I'd love to get Frida's thoughts on some of the opportunities and challenges as well.
All right. For me, I think the challenges actually is transitioning from a freelancer, from where someone like Haneen is to a business person. And the challenge is actually there's no capacity for, I'm talking about my country because that's what I know more. But so it's being able to build business structures, being able to have very clear business plans, being able to write proposals, things around creating a business that is scalable and a business that can be investor ready. So that is a challenge because of this gig economy, there has been an influx of donor funding, donor interest in Kenya, and they are always asking for people to apply who are around this area, but the intake is very, very minimal because of that very gap where there's no one is building, I think no one really, for most freelancers, they just, I would say they outsource work to their fellow freelancers very unofficially, but to the point where it's a business that is scalable and able to create jobs, now that becomes a problem. The opportunity around there, I would say for the practitioners, is to build capacity around there. So that when businesses in Africa or in Kenya are businesses that are confident and businesses that can be trusted, I believe it will be an opportunity to narrow down the gap bridge and the job linkages bridge, because companies and clients from the globe would now be able to very easily outsource their work to these businesses. But the way the businesses are right now, it's not good.
Thank you. Those are really important, especially from the side of you being a gig worker yourself and looking at what challenges can practitioners face when supporting, gig workers. Sarah, what about you?
The digital world has created so much opportunity, and I think that's where the main opportunity is for these young people. It is the kind of work that has makes it a young person sitting in his room to be connected to the whole world, and that is where the opportunities start. And an increasing number of young people are understanding this, and we are promoting this so that this becomes a better and better opportunity. We're starting doing this from the high schools now to get them to think entrepreneurial skills are important, and being an entrepreneur and starting your own work is important. However, some of the challenges that we faced as we went along is that it is not enough to be linked to the outside world. You have to compete with your content ability, with your competency as a person, whether you're doing graphic work or you're doing translation like Haneen, or you are doing engineering or whatever you are doing. If you're not competent, you will not be able to compete in the international market. A second thing is the pricing that you would put in, because there are so many different countries, and so many youth from all around the world are competing together, and some countries are giving lower pricing ranges for the same work that you will be doing. So this is something that has also to be looked at very critically. And so we are getting our youth to understand this and to meet these challenges for the future.
Yeah, I also echo the fact that it's a vast space that is growing. We see an uptick in the number of opportunities is definitely something that I think practitioners need to, be aware of and understand. But then there's the challenges, and I like Jennifer in the chat said, while, the space is growing, practitioners actually need to understand the full context of these opportunities. So and it grows quickly and fast. And even understanding what types of jobs are there, what types of skills are, and this is all something that's consistently changing. So I really like the fact that Jennifer is mentioning the full context of it needs to be better understood, better grasped by our practitioners ourselves that are providing supports to youth. And what I've seen, one of the biggest challenges is inclusion of marginalized youth, particularly looking at, like I mentioned before, how can marginalized youth, whether in rural areas or areas where there's less connectivity, but also less access to devices, participate in this growing sector, and how we, again, not leave them behind. And so thank you all for sharing those. I see Sega is talking about social protections and labor laws. This is something that cannot be ignored, particularly because virtual gigs are oftentimes informal. The wages that young people have to do multiple jobs, and he talked about having to work 12 hours at some point, yet there's no protections to guard that. Frida, particularly, I know that the Online Workers Association in Kenya has been focusing a bit on sort of sharing ideas with government. Have you seen any traction or movement on social protections in general?
Yes, we have actually. The only problem we ran to is talking to the traditional insurance companies in Kenya. They were not really ready to change their way of doing or changing the product to favor online workers. And so then we had to think of a solution of our own that we can actually use to persuade or find other means of getting into this social protection. So when we talk about social protection, we are talking about insurance, we are talking about pension or other employee benefits that most 9-to-5 workers get. What is happening right now is the UK government, through something they call FCO, is actually working on a platform with one of the companies in Kenya to try and create that space where there's flexibility and for virtual gigs workers to save on that. And it's still being built right now, but they have invited us as online workers to be the people who anchor it and pilot it. So that's ongoing right now.
Thank you for sharing that. I think the world everywhere has a lot to do as far as social protection. So I think learning from each other is going to be critical, especially as we all support youth. Moving on to the next prompt, we're looking now at sort of the youth side of it. So what are the opportunities and challenges for you to leverage virtual gigs to actually carve out career and entrepreneurial pathways. So not just working in gigs, but to carve out pathways over a long term. I would say, please continue to share your thoughts in the chat. I'm going to start off with the panel this time. Can Saro, if you could just share your thoughts on this first.
Okay, you know, the first thing that a young person would do once he starts, you know, working virtually is building a network of people. He's being connected to many different individuals, to many different companies, to different NGOs, attaining technical experience, you know, by doing the first job, whether you start with a micro work or then move into a freelancer, you know, all those small steps that you are taking are giving you the experience to build up yourself, to build up your understanding of the work that you are working towards. And of course, the soft skills capabilities in negotiation, in understanding of how to make to do a good proposal from a you know, a difficult proposal. Most importantly, I think understanding the market needs, because without understanding the market needs, you cannot work. So that is a chance that you are given while you are working with this. Some of the challenges that you would find is, of course, the lack of role models and mentors. You know, that's what we are now trying to do, is to find role models in Palestine internationally that will help the youth to see where does this career lead you to? Where do you move from here? You know, does this take you into a sustainable career into the future? As we know, you know, virtual work, and mostly as we talk about whenever we are speaking about, you know, being a freelancer, there is inconsistent amount of work. You're working 2 months and then 1 month you're not working unless you become so good that you have constant work. So all of these things are challenges that we need to work with, trying to get good mentors, role models for the youth so that they can see a path into the future. And one thing that we would like to do is to link them with more specialized people. That means to form teams and being a person that is supporting a lead person, and that would give them an opportunity to enter the market and then start their own projects into the future.
Certainly, I think I totally agree with you that support is needed, and even in the form of role models. And one of them is actually Frida, who has been doing virtual gig work, but also training youth to be able to learn the skills and thrive. And Frida, I wanted to have you share your thoughts on this question, because Jennifer was actually also sharing a little bit about how education systems need to transform. And that's something that you've been, you know, critically thinking about for Kenya. Could you share your thoughts on that?
All right, Nina. So actually, I think because Kenya is one of the countries, I would say, in Africa that has a high penetration of internet access, the problem then comes in when there's internet, but people don't know what to do with the internet. You have the access. The government has put innovation hubs. The members of parliament have put innovation hubs in those rural areas. But what do you do with them? So the opportunity here is when you have the access to internet and you have access to digital content or e-course learning or training, it allows you to learn new skills that are, I would say, are in demand right now, and keep you at a level where you can globally compete with the other online workers. But the challenge comes in right here in Kenya is that we do not have localized content that explains or tries to take beginners or anyone interested to start working online. There is no career path. There is no information that tells you this is what you can do. These are the different fields you can get in. This is where you begin. If you need more training, this is where to go. So I will give you a very specific example, is that when you tell most people in Kenya that you work online, their biggest, the first thing they think is you do writing or academic writing or transcription. So there's now, that information is not there to tell you that no, even as an accountant, even as a legal person, there's something for you to do in the virtual economy, gig economy. So for me, I believe the opportunity is access to internet. It gives you all this opportunity, but then we need to provide digital content, localized digital content around it.
Thank you. And Haneen, I wanted to share maybe from your personal experience about the challenges and opportunities for youth, looking at programming, the way the programs are designed, anything that you've experienced. But you're on mute.
In light of my experience in EFE training program, I learned that in addition to certain skills to work with as a freelancer, such as translation, programming, or design, one needs to enjoy other skills. For example, I used to be that kind of person who's not that serious about time, and this was the first habit I changed. I remember the first day of the training when I came late because I was looking for the place, and the other time when I lost a client because I responded late. The lesson learned is that in business, time is money. Time management and commitment to deadlines are a must. Another thing that I learned from is that when the soft skills trainer was asking about a logo designer to edit the logo of his company. At that time, I called one of my peers specialized in design, and I myself volunteered to translate the basic information about his company for free. He liked my translation and took my number for further works, and guess what? Till now, we are still working together. Thus, the skill learned is the significance of good communication skills with the clients, how to attract them and build a sustainable relationship. A third skill is good knowledge in financial issues and money transfer. Several months after the training, my friend asked me to help her with an online job. It was translating and assisting in a researcher in his master thesis. I taught her some steps in writing, and she taught me ways and apps used in money transfer and payment with international clients. The fourth thing is that good knowledge in using freelancer platforms. For instance, my favorite platform is LinkedIn, where I publish posts and communicate with the clients regularly. By the time I have been trained to acquire these skills, and I'm succeeding in achieving my goals.
Thank you, Honey. I think when you mentioned the skills, it's critical, and that's something that skills that can be translated or leveraged from working on gigs, but to other types of work, from time management, attention to detail, communication, which is a critical skill. All those that you're mentioning are things that you can use over time and transition to other careers as you're speaking. So I wanted to also mention one of the other critical challenges that we've seen and we're looking at is supports for young people to learn how to learn on their own. So being in the virtual gig environment is truly about learning on your own time, on your own schedule, but also learning how to learn skills by yourself. And with lack of resources on how to actually do that well, it's not very accessible for all young people to just get online and do things, whether it's learning a technical skills like transcription or learning soft skills. And where are those key places? Where do they go to? Where are the supports? I think these are all challenges on the youth perspective to access these things and then to become better as not just at gigs, but to leverage those for other types of work. I wanted to now also consider, we're going to be taking questions from everyone, and I wanted to make sure that you have time to write them. So please write into the chat what your questions are, and while you do that, I have a few people on this panel share some of the recommendations on particularly what supports and skills do you need to succeed in virtual work as they transition into sustainable careers and entrepreneurship. So what particular supports do you need? Sarah, can I start with you?
Sure. I think that the first thing that we have to build the overall context for this is that within the university, and this has been successful, where we are linking faculty with the students to do different kinds of virtual work. And that gives from the university level, starting at the third year, fourth year students, start getting into virtual work with their faculty members. And as they graduate, they will also graduate into working for themselves. So this is one kind of support that we need to build within universities. We need to give the skills to, first of all, to the faculty within universities to bring this entrepreneurial spirit within the universities so that they can also show the pathway for these young people into the future and to move forward. Another thing that I would recommend is that we create more, programs with incubation and acceleration, where we get these young people getting together, whether this incubator is within the university or within outside the university, where they can get together, join forces, and make a better proposal with bringing together engineers with marketing people, bringing together nurses with good English speakers, So all of these different combinations would help these young people to move forward into more sustainable careers. So it starts at the university level and moves forward into the future.
Thank you. And Frida, what would you share as far as the supports needed for youth?
I think information is what is lacking, and also the skills trained in school. There needs to be a bridge between what is taught in school and what the world is looking for. I also believe that companies also need to share this information with the education institutions, because they are the ones who will be employing these people. And it doesn't make sense that they get graduates who then they have to train again so that they fit in the job system. So that collaboration between the work and education systems would enable people really create great training systems to merge that.
Thank you, Frida. And I think we could take a question that came up in the chat. So Sega, could you share with us what that question was?
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello. So the question we got was, can the different presenters talk a bit about internet availability in your area? Do most youth have access to internet on a regular basis?
Would you like to maybe take that on, Haneen, for Palestine?
Actually, youth need to acquire a certain skills from the most common and needed ones.
If you could talk about the internet connectivity, the question that Sega just asked about how much internet connectivity is there in Palestine for young people to be able to access?
Actually, I prepared three challenges that we face here in Palestine, and especially in Gaza, and how can programs help and support us in overcoming them. The first one is their university major is far from what is required in a freelancing platform, such as the specializations related to psychology, sociology, and history. They don't have any chance to enter the virtual jobs. Another thing is that they are not experienced enough, whether in their skills or the platform's usage. In some areas, young girls and people with disabilities are not encouraged to participate in virtual jobs training because of their circumstances. Also, due to financial reasons, some youth here don't have the basic devices to work, such as laptops or constant internet connection. They may live in places far from training areas and have problems with transportations also, or they don't know about the training themselves. Also, these challenges can be overcome by a supporting and well-designed training program based on researching and identifying the target group, studying their needs, in all terms, and then planning the program that is suitable to fit in this needs.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, if I can just quickly say something there, Nina. You know, until about a year ago, there was no 3G in the Palestinian territories. Not because they could not get it, but it was because it was forbidden for them to have the 3G. Now that the 3G is available, you know, there is more access through the iPads, the iPhones, you know, and more youth are being able to be connected through the 3G network, whether if they don't have other types of land connections and so forth. There is over about 60% of the families are connected in Palestine, and with 3G and smartphones, it's over 85%. So there is a very high connectivity there.
Thank you, Sarah. We're up on time, so I wanted to just give Frida 30 seconds to respond to that question.
All right, thank you, Nina. Again, I would say internet connectivity here in Kenya is a bit, it's better. The only thing that comes around that is now the affordability of that internet. Yeah, and then also the PCs, the hardware that one requires to access the internet. But there has been different initiatives getting people there. There's like in, I would say like Kipi and Nanyuki, there's white space technology that combines with the normal internet to get internet to the rural areas. But I think I would say we are doing well when it comes to internet access, but not every person is getting it. And the other thing that comes up is what do you do with the internet, the digital skills. When you do an assessment, you realize, yes, there's internet, but people don't know what to do with it.
Thank you for that perspective. I think, obviously, whenever doing an intervention, we think a lot about access, right? And without more internet connectivity, no matter where we are, even here in the States, we need better internet connectivity for everyone. And there's always someone left out. I think when we think about virtual gigs, this is a vast area of improvement. And as practitioners, we're always trying to figure out how do we have more youth access these opportunities when this is such a barrier, and sometimes very much related to infrastructure that we are unable to solve in the midst of our interventions. So I think I think as a community, we need to sort of think together on how we can collectively work together to help that and to alleviate those challenges. I'd like to share, thank you all for joining us, and I'd like to share a bit of research that IREX has done as we go our separate ways and continue thinking about this topic. In our literature review on virtual gigs, and Sega is putting a link to it in the chat so that you can access it, we look at the vast lay of the land as far as the global economy on virtual gigs, but then hone in on Kenya and the challenges, opportunities, but also the soft skills that have been necessary for youth to succeed, for people to succeed in general. And we looked at all of the literature that we were seeing on this topic, and we actually counted the number of times these skills were being talked about in research, what was needed. And this is across different technical areas. So from graphic design to transcription to web design. So all of these are different areas, but focusing a lot on these transferable skills that we know are critical offline as well, are showing up again online. And one of the highest skills we saw were teamwork and collaboration, communication, as you see there, creativity and problem solving. These are all critical skills that many of us really have been focusing on offline, and still critical online. So I share that as a way for us to consider and think about what are some of the interventions that we're doing offline that help young people get sustained careers already. How can we leverage that and learn more about the virtual gig space for them to, and translate that for you to also be able to use it to gain access to sustained careers, long-term careers, and entrepreneurs. As IREX works now, we're doing the intervention now with KaziRemote, and we'll be sharing the findings of that as we have them. I wanted to make sure that Sarah also was able to talk about any of the interventions that you all are doing. and how people, yeah, and what we could look out for.
Okay, you know, some of the interventions that we're doing is specifically, you know, getting the youth to be able to have skills that are very much tied to their ability to communicate. You know, a lot of the students that come out even from the universities and technical schools do not have the social intelligence and the ability to communicate with the other. There are some cultural issues with this, and there are some, you know, being business professional issues. And those are some of the things that we cross those with specifically with the, you know, soft skills programs that we do. And other than that, the technical programs that we do would be some of it that I spoke about. And then we do specific programs, for example, in marketing, in sales, in nursing, in the hotel industry, and so forth. And all of these issues are all tied to in the end, to the technical skills that are very much needed for future, you know, careers of the youth that we work with.
Thank you so much. And Frida or Haneen, any parting words? You can only have 30 seconds.
Well, yeah, I have many things to say actually.
I can only give you 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to speak like quickly about the reality in Palestine. Actually, my family, and my peers have our perspective of online work. It changed positively. We programmed from the beginning to look for jobs on the ground that satisfy our needs for security and stability. And I myself was obsessed with this idea. However, after entering the online work and have good results day by day, we start to be comfortable with it. Moreover, we turn the insecurity of not having a stable job into a motive to be more dynamic and constantly looking for more jobs and having alternatives. As a result, thank you.
Thank you. I have to segue. And Frida, any last words?
Mine is just about collaboration. Let's do that a lot. The problem we've identified is in skills, it's in job linkages and building scalable businesses. If you're in that area and you're able to help, reach out, let's collaborate.
Thank you, everyone. As you see here, here's all the contact information from everyone that spoke today. As we work on our initiatives and support more youth, we'd love to also engage with the work that you all are doing and learn from each other, because this sector is really growing, changing, and we know that young people need more support to be able to leverage it for more sustained opportunities. And I encourage you all to reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, and thank you.
Great, and sorry for those of you still on. I just want to remind everyone that we have a second series coming up on Wednesday, August 12th, so we encourage you to register for that. But thank you to all the presenters.